Hey, salam alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak to all you beautiful people out there. Greetings to everybody. This your girl Tiffany coming through right here live in effect. So tonight I'm going to be there with the topic about Shia Islam. Uh, as you can see in the series of the Islamic School of Thoughts. So I'm gonna go into their detail, but please make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, share the video contents and all that great stuff. All right. So until then, let's go ahead and get started. All right. So right here, I'm on the WikiOne website, and I'm gonna go into the second part of Islam about Shia Islam. So Shia Islam or Shiaism is one of the two main branches of Islam. It holds that the Islamic prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam designate Ali ibn Abi Talib as his successor and the Imam, spiritual and political leader after him. Most notably at the event of Gadar Kahum, but was prevented from succeeding Muhammad as the leader of all Muslims as a result of the choice made by Muhammad's other companions at Saqifa. This view primarily contrasts with that of Sunni Islam, who adherents believe that Muhammad did not appoint a successor before his death and consider Abu Bakr, who was appointed caliph by a group of senior Muslims at Saqifa, to be the first rightful caliph after Muhammad. A person observing Shia Islam is called a Shiite or Shia. So Shia Islam is based on Muhammad's Hadith. Shia considered Ali to have been divinely appointed as the successor to Muhammad as the first Imam. The Shia also extended this imamah to Muhammad's family, the Al-Abayt, and some individuals among his descendants known as Imams, who they believe possesses special spiritual and political authority over the community. Infallibly and other divinely ordained traits. Although there are many Shia subsets, modern Shia Islam has been divided into two main groupings, Twelvers and Ismaili. The Twelvers Shia being the largest and most influential group among Shia. Okay. Shia Islam is the largest branch of Islam. It's the second largest branch of Islam as of the end of the first decade of the 21st century. Shia Muslim constitute 10 to 15% of all Muslims. 12 Shia is the largest branch of Shia Islam, with 2012 estimating saying that 85% of Shias were 12er. All right, so what does the word Shia means? So the term collectively adherent of Shia Islam are called Shia, which is short for Shiatu Ali, meaning followers of Ali, faction of Ali, or party of Ali. The notes being the secular noun and the adjective form. Refer to the plural noun. Shia or Shiite are the forms used in English for adherents, mosque, and things associated with the religion. So it says the term was first used during Muhammad's life. At present, the word refers to the Muslim who believe that the leadership of the community after Muhammad belonged to Ali and his successor. Nabakati states that the term Shia refers to a group of Muslims that at the time of Muhammad and after him regarded Ali as the Imam and Caliph. Al-Sharatani expressed that the term Shia referred to those who believe that Ali is designated as the heir, Imam, and Caliph by Muhammad, and that Ali's authority is maintained through his descendants. For the Shia, this convention is implicit in the Quran and the history of Islam. Shia scholars emphasize that the notion of authority is linked to the family of the prophets, as the verses 3:33 and 34 shows, indeed, God chose Adam and Noah and the family of Abraham and the family of Iran over the worlds, descendants, some of them from others, and God is hearing and knowing. All right. So basically, to go in, the Shias believe that Ali, who was the cousin and also the wife of his daughter Fatima, is supposed to be the successor after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Sunnis did not believe that there was going to be a successor after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, there is a caliph, but the caliph was not chosen by Prophet Muhammad. It was chosen by those in the community, okay, which was Abu Bakr. So this created the confidence between the Shia Muslim and the Sunni Muslims. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going further down. All right. Let's go down to theology and practice. All right, so theology. The Shia Islamic faith is vast and inclusive of many different groups. Shia Islam embodies a completely independent system of religious interpretation and political authority in the Muslim world. The original Shia identity referred to the followers of Imam Ali, and Shia theology was formulated in the 2nd century AH or at the Hijra. The first Shia governments and society were established by the end of the 3rd century AH or 9th century CE. The 4th century AH or /10th century CE has been referred to by Louis Mazian as the Shiite Ismaili century in the history of Islam. All right, so now go down here where it says profession of faith, the Shahadah. So the Shahadah version of the Shiite, the Islamic profession of faith, differs from that of the Sunni Muslim. The Sunni Shahadah states there is no God except God. Muhammad is the messenger of God. But to this the Shiite appended Ali is the wali of God. This phrase embodies the Shia emphasis on the inheritance of authority through Muhammad's lineage. The 3 causes of Shia Shahadah thus addresses Tawheed, Nubuwah, and Imamah. The basis of Ali as the wali is taken from a specific verse of the Quran. A more detailed discussion of this verse is available. Right. So infallibility or Ishma. Ishma is a concept of infallibility or divinely bestowed freedom from error and sins in Islam. Muslims believe that Muhammad and other prophets in Islam possessed Ishma. 12er and Ismaili Shia Muslim also could attribute the quality of imams as well as to Fatima, daughter of Muhammad. In contrast to the Sadi'i, who do not attribute Ishma to the imams, though initially beginning as political movement, infallibility and sinlessness of the imams later evolved as a distinct belief of non-Zadi Shiism. All right. So let's look up the word. So infallibility means that you're unable to do wrong and your error and sins has been corrected automatically. All right. So down here it says, according to Shia theologians, infallibility is considered a rational, necessary precondition for spiritual and religious guidance. They argue that since God has commanded absolute obedience from these figures, they must only order that which is right. The state of infallibility is based on the Shia interpretation of the verse of purification. Thus, they are the most pure ones, the only immaculated ones, preserved from and immune to all uncleanness. It does not mean that supernatural powers prevent them from committing a sin, but due to the fact that they have absolute belief in God, they refrain from doing anything that is a sin. All right. So let's go down to where it says Hadith tradition. Oh, you know what? Inheritance. All right. It is believed that our armaments and sacred items of all of the prophets, including Muhammad, were handed down in succession to the imams of al-Ba'at and Kitab al-Kafi. Jafar al-Sadiq mentions that with me are the arms of the messenger of Allah. It is not disputable. Further, he claimed that with him is the sword of Muhammad, of the messenger of God, his coat of arms, his lamin, his helmet. In addition, he mentioned that with him is the flag of the messenger of God, the victorious. With him is the staff of Moses, the ring of Solomon, son of David, and the tray of which Moses used to offer his offerings. With him is the name that whenever the messenger of God would place it between the Muslims and pagans, no arrow from the pagans would reach the Muslims. With him is the similar object that angels brought. Al-Sadiq also narrates that the passing down of armaments is synonymous to receiving the imat, similar to how the ark in the house of the Israelites signal prophethood. Imam Ali al-Rada narrates that wherever the armaments among us would go, the knowledge would also follow, and the armaments would never depart from those with knowledge. All right, so let's look at the Hadith tradition. So the Shia believes that the status of Ali is supported by numerous Hadith, including the Hadith of the Pan of Kamun, Hadith of the two wetty things, Hadith of the pen and paper, Hadith of the invitation of the close families, and Hadith of the 12 successors. In particular, the Hadith of the coat is often quoted to illustrate Muhammad's feeling towards Ali and his family by both Sunni and Shia scholars. Shia prefer Hadith attribute to the al-Bayat and close associates and have their own separate Hadith canon. All right, now here's the practices. So the Shia religious practices such as prayer differ only slightly from the Sunnis. While all Muslims pray 5 times daily, Shias have the option of combining Dhuhr with Ashr, Maghrib, and Isha, as there are 3 distinct times mentioned in the Quran. The Sunnis tend to combine only under certain circumstances. So while the Sunni Muslim believe in praying 5 times a day, now there's one prayer that is not done, and that's after Fajr. All right, so this prayer comes around like 6:50 or 7 o'clock. So by this prayer come around 6:50 or 7 o'clock in the morning, it's not really a requirement to make that prayer per se. So unless you live in certain countries, so technically it's only 5 prayers. Only you have to pray 5 times a day in the Sunni Islamic culture, but in the Shia, it's basically 3 times. So those prayers that we know is combined in 3 prayers. So in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. So that's basically how they doing it. All right. So let's see what else let's look at the branches real quick. Okay. All right, so let's look up the Ismailism. All right, if you guys can see that screen, cool. So what is Ismailism? So it's a branch or subset Shia Islam. The Ismailism get their name from their acceptance of Imam Ismaili ibn Jafar as the appointed spiritual successor to Jafar al-Sadiq, wherein they differ from the Ulusi Shia Abaris, Elvis Elvis Patashi, and Alawites, who accepted Musa al-Qadim, the younger brother of Ishmael, as the true Imam. All right. So the Imamism rose at one point to become the largest branch of Shiism, climaxing as political power with the Fatimid Caliphate in the 10th through 12th century. Ismailis believe in the oneness of God as well as the closing of divine revelation with Muhammad, whom they see as the final prophet and the messenger of God to all humanity. The Ismaili and the Twelvers both accept the same six initial imams. The Ismaili accept Ishmael ibn Jafar as the seventh imam. All right. So after the death of Muhammad ibn Ismaili in the 8th century CE, the teachings of Ismaili further transformed into the belief system as it is known today, with an explicit concentration on the deeper esoteric meaning of the Islamic religion, with the eventual development of Usulism and Akbarism into more literalistic oriented. Shia Islam developed into two separate directions: the metaphorical Ismaili, Alevi, Batashi, Alan, and Alawite groups, focusing on the mystical path and nature of God, along with the Imam of Time, representing the manifestation of esoteric truth and intelligible divine reality, with the more literalistic. And I already read that part. Okay, so the Usili and Akbari groups focusing on divine law, which is the Sharia law, and the deeds and saying of Muhammad and the 12 imams who were guides and a light to God. All right. All right. So now, as you can see, the biggest Ismaili group is in Badakhshan, but Ismaili can be found in Central Asia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, Lebanon, Malaysia, Syria, Iran, Saudi Arabia, India, Jordan, Iraq, East Africa, Angola, Bangladesh, and South Africa, and have in recent years immigrated to Europe, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, and Trinidad and Tobago. So in the United States, let's talk about Dearborn, Michigan. So Dearborn, Michigan is somewhere outside of Detroit, or it's like a suburb of Detroit, rather. In that area, they have a large Islamic community. So they not only have those who are in the Sunni Islamic culture, but they have those who are in the Shia Islam culture. So they all live and coexist with one another in that community. Okay. Yep. All right. All right, so let's go down here. It says Ismailism shared its beginning with other early Shia sect that emerged during the succession crisis that spread throughout the early Muslim community. From the beginning, the Shia asserted the right of Ali, cousin of Muhammad, to have both political and spiritual control of the community. This also included his sons, who were the grandsons of Muhammad through his daughter Fatima. All right. All right, so let's also see what the other school of thought is talking about. So the Twelver, also known as Imaniya, is the largest branch of Shia Islam, with about 85% of all Shias. The term Twelver refers to its inherent belief in 12 divinely ordained leaders known as the 12 Imams, and their belief that the last Imam, Imam al-Mahdi, lives in occultation and will reappear as the promised Mahdi, or which means the rightly guided one. According to Shia tradition, the Mahdi tenure will coincide with the second coming of Jesus, who is to assist the Mahdi against the Dajjal. Twelvers believe that the 12 Imams are the spiritual and political successor of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. According to the theology of Twelvers, the 12 Imams are exemplary human individuals who do not only rule over the community with justice, but also able to preserve and interpret the Sharia and the esoteric meaning of the Quran, the words and deeds, Sunnah of Muhammad, and the Imams are a guide and model for the community to follow. As a result, Muslim and Imams must be free from error and sin, a doctrine known as Ishma or infallibility, and must be chosen by divine decree or Nas through Muhammad. There are approximately 150 million to 200 million Twelvers in the world today, making the majority of the total population of Iran, Iraq, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Lebanon, making minorities in India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Bangladesh, Kuwait, Oman, UAE, which stand for United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Nigeria, Chad, and Tanzania. Iran is the only country where Twelverism is the state religion. All right. So Twelvers share many tenets with other Shiite sects, such as the belief in Imams, but the Ismaili Shias believe in a different number of Imams, and for the most part, a different path of succession regarding the inmates. They also differ in the role and overall definition of Imam. Twelvers are also distinguished from Ismailis by their belief in Muhammad's status as the seals of the prophet, Khatan an-Nabiyyin, and rejecting the possibility of abrogation of Sharia laws, and in considering both esoteric and exoteric aspect of the Quran. Alevis in Turkey, Albania, and Alawatis in Syria and Lebanon share belief in the 12 Imams with the Twelvers, but their theological doctrines are markedly different. So, all right, so the term Twelver is based on the belief that 12 male descendants from the family of Muhammad started with Ali ibn Abi Talib and ending with Muhammad al-Mahdi are imams who have religious and political authority. All right. All right, so the Twelvers are also known by other names. Shia refer to a group of Muslims who believe that the success to Muhammad must remain in his family for specific members who are designated by a divine appointed. Tabai states that the word referred to the partisans of Ali at the time of Muhammad himself. Jafari refers exclusively to the jurisdictional school, which is followed by Twelvers and Nazaris. The term is derived from the name of Jafar al-Sadiq, who is considered by the Twelvers and Nazaris to be their sixth imam, who present a legal treatise. Jafar al-Sadiq is also respected and referenced by the founders of the Sunni, Hanifi, and Maliki schools of jurisprudence. All right. So Imam or Imaliya or Immat is a reference to the Twelver belief in the infallibility of the Imams, although the Ishmaelis also shared the concept of Imaliyite. This term is mostly used for the Twelvers who believe that the leadership of the community after Muhammad belongs to the 12 subsequent successors, including all that together comprise the 14 infallibles. All right. So, all right, so you can see, let's talk about the prayers. Well, I don't think we need to go into the prayer and the fasting and all that. So Nazir described that fasting is abstaining oneself from food, drink, and sexual intercourse from the dawn to the sunset during the month of Ramadan. The fast also requires the abstaining one's mind and tongue away from evil thoughts and words. It is obligatory from the age of adolescence until the time one possesses the physical strength to undertake it. The fast is not obligatory for the sick, those traveling, and breastfeeding mothers, but they must make up the lost days when possible. According to Tabatabai Arabic, fasting means to abstain oneself from something, which later in the development of the religion was applied to abstaining from some particular things from break of dawn up to sunset with intention. Fasting results in piety to abstain oneself from gratifying worldly matters, result in the perfection of the spirit. He adds one should care about matters which take him away from his Lord. This is called piety. This abstinence from common lawful things calls him to abstain from unlawful things and to come near to God. The end of Ramadan comes with the prayer of the Eid, after which a sum of money equal to the cost of all the meals not eaten by oneself and one's family during this month is usually given to the poor. All right. So the fasting is pretty much similar to how they do it in the Sunni Islam. All right. So pretty much it's very similar with fasting. You gotta abstain from sexual intercourse, using profanity, from food and drink, including water, and that's from sundown, from sun up to sundown, basically. So while the sun's up, you can't do anything, but when the sun's down, you can do whatever you choose afterwards. Also, what else I was going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. It's another thought. I forgot what I was going to say. All right. So anyways, let's just go ahead and let me go ahead and show you guys some sources that you can read upon if you want to learn more about the Shia Islam and all of that great stuff. All right. All right, this source right here. It's called The Epic Story of Shia and Sunni Split in Islam After the Prophet by Leslie Hazelton. All right, so let's go to part one. Part one, Muhammad. All right, so if there was a single moment it all began, it was that of Muhammad's death. Even the prophet was mortal. That was the problem. It was as though nobody had considered the possibility that he might die, not even Muhammad himself. Did he know he was dying? Sure, he surely must have. So to those around him, yet nobody seemed able to acknowledge it. And this was a strange blindness on their part. Muhammad was 63 years old. After all, a long life for his time. He had been wounded several times in battle and had survived no fewer than 3 assassination attempts that we know of. Perhaps those closest to him could not conceive of a murder illness bringing him down after such concerted malady. All right, let me go ahead and continue where I left off. All right. The very people who had once opposed Muhammad and plotted to kill him were now amongst his senior aides. Peace had been made, the community united. It wasn't just the dawn of a new age. It was morning, the sun bright, the day full of promises. Arabia was posed to step out of the background as a political and cultural backwater and take a major role on the world stage. How could its leader die on the verge of such success? Yet dying, he definitely was. And after all the violence he had seen, the battles, the assassination attempts, he was dying of natural causes. All right. So let's go further down. It says, there will surely talk about that in Medina. Hold on. It says, if a son had existed, perhaps the whole country of Islam would have been different. The discord, the civil war, the rival caliphs, the split between Sunni and Shia, all might have been averted. But though Muhammad's first wife, Khadijah, had given birth to 2 sons alongside 4 daughters, both had died in infancy. And though Muhammad had married 9 more wives after her death, not one had become pregnant. There was surely talk about that in Medina and in Mecca too. Most of the 9 marriages after Khadijah had been political, as was the custom among all rulers of the time. They were diplomatic alliances. Muhammad had chosen his wives carefully in order to bind the new community of Islam together, creating ties of kinship across tribes and across all hostilities. Just 2 years earlier, when Mecca had finally accepted Islam and his leadership, he had even married Habiba, whose father had led Mecca's long and bitter opposition to him. But marital alliances were sealed by children. Mixed blood was new blood, free of the old division. For a leader, this was crucial point of marriage. All right, so it goes on to talk about Aisha radiallahu anha, which means Allah, may Allah be pleased with her. All right, so basically to sum it up, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not have any sons. Okay, the children he did have, they all passed away, except for one, and that was Fatima. Fatima was his only child. So because she was a female during that time period, you gotta remember Islam was based off the patriarchal concept. So women didn't have that role in leadership or in that power to become caliphs or become imams or become sheikhs or anything like that, or even prophets at that. So if he had a son, then it would seal the deal. Everybody would have been on the same page. It wouldn't be no Shia Muslim or Sunni Muslim. But because according to the information, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not have any sons, and he had a cousin named Ali, right? but Ali wasn't chosen to become the caliph. So actually it was Abu Bakr who was chosen by the community, and he was not any kin to Prophet Muhammad. All right. So the issue is with the Shiite Muslim, they felt like that the lineage should be passed down in the family. The leadership should be passed down to the next in line, the next kin. So the next kin in line was his cousin Ali, who's also the husband of his daughter Fatima. That's who was the next in line. So according to the Shiites, they felt like Ali should be in the next caliph. He should have been the next successor. Nobody else outside the family bloodline. All right. So that pretty much sums it up. Okay. If you guys want to read more, about this, you can check out this book called After the Prophet, Leslie Hazelton. The epic story of the Sunni and Shia split in Islam. Okay. All right, so here's another book called Jafari. Now let's see what this book is about, the Jafari, the origin and the early development of the Shia. All right. So it was written by Sahih Hassan Muhammad Jafari. Ooh. All right, so let's go ahead and look at chapter 1. Where it says, chapter 1, conceptual foundation. The division of the community of Islam into Sunni and Shia branches have commonly been explained in terms of purely political differences. Its origin have been attributed to basically political partisanship with regard to leadership of the Ummah, a partisanship which later exploded into conflict in the civil war between Ali and Muawiyah. This war not only established the Umayyads in power, but also supposedly marked the event of Shiism as religious movement diverging from the main body of believers. Such an interpretation grossly oversimplifies a very complex situation. All right. And those who thus emphasize the political nature of Shiism are perhaps too eager to project the modern Western notion of the separation of church and state back into 7th century Arabian society, where such a notion would be not only foreign but completely unintelligible. Such an approach also implies the spontaneous appearance of Shiism rather than its gradual emergence and development within Islamic society. The recent Occidental conception of a purely spiritual movement is exceptional. Throughout most of human history, religion has been intimately involved in the whole life of man in society, and not least in his politics. Even the purely religious teaching of Jesus, as it is commonly regarded, is not without its political relevance. Just as the prophet was basically a religious and spiritual teacher and messenger, and at the same time, due to the circumstances, a temporal ruler, statesman, Islam has been since its very birth both a religious discipline and, so to speak, a socio-political movement. It is basically religious because of the status Muhammad attained it as the apostle of God, appointed and sent by him to deliver his message to mankind, and political because of the environment and circumstances in which it arose and grew. All right. So likewise, Shiism in its inherent nature has always been both religious and political, and these coexisting aspects are found side by side throughout its history. It is therefore difficult to speak at any stage of its existence about the political Shia as distinct from the religious one. Throughout the first 3 or 4 centuries of Islamic religious and institutional development, one cannot fail to see that all religious discussion among Muslims had both political and social relevance. All right, so in that chapter, so basically it shows that the differences between the Shiite and Sunni Muslim is dealing with the political aspect of it, the social political aspect, versus just being the religion. Again, religion is the blueprint. Okay, it's the blueprint. You have to look at the psychology. All right, and you have to look at the political part and the social part of it. So what you're dealing with, so in this case, it was the social and the political aspect based on how the communities was ran, based on the doctrines, the way it was taught in certain communities. All right, the same thing go for all these different schools of thought. They all have their own social political concept about the scriptures and the principles, the doctrines, the teachings, and all that stuff. It's all dealing with the political concept. So, like, I'll give you a good example. At one point in time, I was a Hebrew Israelite. So you had the non-Messianic Hebrew Israelite and you had the Messianic Hebrew Israelite. So the non-Messianic Hebrew Israelites did not believe in Jesus Christ. As a matter of fact, they didn't believe in the concept of hell. They strictly went by the Old Testament, all right, which is the first 5 books of Moses, or what they call the Torah, all right, or the Tanakh. So that's what they went by, all right. Whereas Messianic Hebrew Israelites, they believed in Jesus as being the son of Yahweh, and they subscribe to both the Old Testament and the New Testament. So because of that, they became 2 different groups, 2 separate groups. Although they both had one thing in common, they are Hebrew Israelites, but it's just one Hebrew Israelite believed in the concept of Jesus, all right? And they believed in following both the New Testament and the Old Testament. And the other Hebrew Israelite believed in following the Old Testament. So again, you're looking at the political and the social aspect of things. That's how you guys see it. All right. All right. So with that being said, if you guys want to check this book out, it's called The Origin and Early Developments of Shia Islam by Sayyid Hassan Muhammad Jafari. Okay. Check that out. All right, so I wanted to show you guys the last source for tonight. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this video like I did about the Sunni Islam. All right, so this one is called the Shia Revival, How Conflict Within Islam Will Shape the Future. And who was it written by? I'm going to see if I can find the artist's name. Vali Nasir. It was written in 2006. Okay. So let's look at the introduction. All right, so let's look at what the author is talking about. All right, so it says in early 2003, right around the start of war in Iraq, I was visiting an old Shia friend in Pakistan. We talked about the changes that were beginning to sweep the Middle East. For my friend, there was a twist of irony to all the talk of Shias and Sunnis that was beginning to fill the airwaves, clearly confusing those in the West who thought that all the matter in Iraq and the Middle East was the fight for democracy. It made him think of an exchange he had with a high-ranking U.S. official. My friend had been a senior Pakistani government official in the 1980s, the liaison with the Pentagon in managing the war against the Soviets in Afghanistan. He reminisced the back in those days when Iran and Hezbollah were raging in active terror war against the United States, and the Afghan Mujahideen were the good guys. His American counterpart, a senior official at the Pentagon, often teased him by saying that the Shias were bloodthirsty, baby-eating monsters. Oh, wow, that's deep. My friend would retort that Americans had got it wrong. Just wait and see. He would tell his colleague from the States, the real problem will be the Sunnis. They are the bullies. The Shiites are the underdogs. Time passed, and my friend retired from government service one sleepy afternoon in the fall of 2001 after September 11. His slumber was disturbed by the noise of sirens as a caravan of black SUVs descended on his house in Islamabad. His old American friend, now an important man in Washington, had come back to Pakistan to manage another war in Afghanistan, and he had decided to drop by. The American asked my friend, do you remember our discussion all those years about Shias and Sunnis? I want you to explain to me what you meant when you said that Sunnis would be the real problem. So my friend explained the difference between the two sets of Islam and who had dominated whom and when and why and what all that would mean today. All right. So that's the introduction. That's the first paragraph. So the author is giving his account based on the visitation that he did in Pakistan, where he had a friend of his that was a Shiite Muslim, and the Shiite Muslim told him that the Sunni Muslim were the problem because they were having conflicts with each other. And so the reason why he was saying that, because the Shiite, according to the brother, the Sunni, wanted to be in control and wanted to dominate. So it's all about having political power, right? And he felt like the United States was the people in the West, which is those of us in the Western Hemisphere, that we had a misunderstanding about the Shiite community and thinking that they are the extremists or the Billy Bad Wolves, where according to him, that the Sunni were the Billy Bad Wolves or the bullies and the Shiites were just the underdogs. But let's go ahead and continue on with this source. It seems like it's a pretty deep book. All right, so it says, chapter 1, who are the Shiites, the other Islam? So it says every year on the 10th day of the holy month of Muharram, the first on the Islamic lunar calendar, Shiite Muslims show a distinctive face of Islam, one that sees spirituality in passion and rituals rather than in law and the familiar practices that punctuate Muslim lives. Open spaces and narrow alleys in cities, towns, and villages take over from mosques and seminaries as Shiites individually and collectively make a show of their piety and their identity. No observer of this day, the festival of Ashura, will remain unaffected by the Shiites' display of fealty to their faith. None will fail to see the uniqueness of Shia Islam or the values and spirituality that defines it. Every year on this day, whose date on the Western calendar changes from year to year because of differences between the Gregorian solar reckoning and the lunar months of the traditional Muslim calendar, the Shia mark the anniversary of the death of their most vividly recalled saint, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, known among the Shia as the Imam Hussein. The day is called Ashura from the Arabic word for 10th. It is an occasion for collective atonement through lamentation and self-flagellation. It is a distinctively Shia practice and has no parallel in Sunnism. In those areas of the Muslim world where Shiites and Sunnis live side by side, Ashura underscores Shia distinctiveness and often draws Sunni approprium. Ashura is a day when the Shias announce who they are, often going to great extremes to do so. And when the Sunnis, by condemning and protesting in equal measure, may announce their objection to Shia practices. All right, it says, when Ashura falls on a warm day late in the spring, throngs of Shia women and children line the narrow byways of the old city of Lahore, a medieval village now surrounded by the sprawling bustle of modern urban Pakistan. Old Lahore's meandering streets, too small for cars, its antique villas with their high ceiling, graceful courtyards and jutting verandas, and its ornate mosque and towering gates take a visit back centuries to the old days when the Mughal emperors ruled these lands. On one side of the old city sits the grand Bashahi Mosque. Arching gates mark each of the four main passages into the old cities. Humming bazaars to the discerning eye of the knowing pedestrian, the old city reveals itself to be a Shia settlement dotted with small shrines and places of worship dedicated to the Imam Hussein. And then goes on to say, each quarter of the old city has its own Ashura possession. They compete and converge as they win their way through the streets and visiting every one of those mosques and places of worship. At the head of each possession march a group of young men carrying a tall metal staff ornately decked with thin strips of red, green, and white cloth that flutter and snap in the breeze. High on the staff sits a triangular black pennant. Above it, at the very top, is the elaborately carved shape of a human hand. The hand represents the five holy people whom the Shia hold in highest regard: the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his daughter Fatima al-Zahra, his son-in-law and cousin Ali, and his grandsons Hassan and Hussein. The hand and the back flag mark Shia houses, mosques, and possession from India to the Middle East. All right, then it goes on to say, young boys offer water to the watching crowd. Everyone drinks and says a prayer for the martyr Hussein. Behind the men carrying the staff comes a wilderless white horse with a beautiful saddle on his back and white feathers on his drooping head. The horse is the center of attention. Its empty saddle reminds watchers of its fallen master, the object of the crowd's adulation. Several women, their heads covered with scarves, trail the horse, gently beating their chests and chanting, "Oh, Hussein." They are praying for forgiveness, for on this day, the Shia believe God answers prayers and forgives the repentant more readily than on any other day, regardless of either the nature and number of the sins committed on the penitent degree of adherence to the daily practices that characterize Muslims' piety. Some of the women are weeping. The atmosphere is charged with anticipation. From around a bench in the street comes a rhythmic throttling interspersed with chanting. Then the bulk of the procession, a long line of men, heaves into view. Dressed in black, they walk for a beat and fill the narrow alleyway, following the lead of an older white-bearded man up front. They beat their chests with both hands as they chant and call in unison, Ya Hassan, Ya Hassan, Ya Hassan. As the procession passes, the sound of the voices and the thrumping echoes from the old city walls. All right. So that's pretty deep. But if you guys want to read more about this, you can do so. It's called The Shia Revival, How Conflicts Within Islam Will Shape the Future. All right. So, in all conclusion, this goes to show you that conflicts with religion does not always exist on the outside or externally, but it can also exist internally. All right, because different points of views and political thoughts and social ideas, philosophy. So because each philosophy that creates a conflict. Now, for many of us, we might think that, oh, it's very strange. It's very weird to sit back and fight over a God that you cannot prove to be absolute, and fight over a prophet that you have never seen before and that you have never even seen a picture of him or ever witnessed. You know what I'm saying? You can't prove him to be absolute. So it becomes very obscene. It becomes very obscene and very one may consider insanity, which it is, but at the same time, it all goes back to the political concept. So from the concrete point of view, we see insanity. We see things being very psychotic and obscene. But from the abstract point of view, we see the politics and the social ideas and the philosophy. That's what we're looking at. So you're looking at a case where there was issues of position of power within the religion. Now, we can't say all Sunni Muslims are like that and all Shiite Muslims are not like that. Again, they can coexist with each other too. Just like I gave you an example in Dearborn, Michigan, they have a large community of the Sunni and the Shiite Muslims, so they both be able to coexist. So, you know, say not everybody have the same thing. So again, you have to look at the psychology. That's the main point. The psychology of the individual will tell a lot about the person more than their religious practice. I'm going to say that again. The psychology of the individuals or of a people tell more about them than their religious practice. So just because somebody say they are a certain type of, they're part of a certain type of belief system or institution does not mean anything. It's about their psychological behavior. That's what's more important. And that's what one have to look at. All right. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, you know, everybody has the right to choose their path and what direction they want to go in life. But you have to be very studious and remember that knowledge is universal. Knowledge is universal. So you have to be able to go beyond the scope and not just study one subject matter. You have to be able to expand your horizon, expand your mind, and be able to find and seek out more information for yourself. All right. So until then, you guys, thank you all for watching. And till next time, I will come back with you all later. Hopefully the next day I could probably do it. I can't guarantee you if I'll be able to do it tomorrow, another video, but hopefully things will work out if I do. Anyways, you guys enjoy your Ramadan. And Ramadan Mubarak to all the Muslims out there. And please be safe during this pandemic. And I'll connect with you all later. So peace and power and elevation. And in the words of the Muslim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And have a good one. All right.